So we're going to take it from the beginning, like you just started Belurat Tower. We're going to go up the steps and we're going to open this huge door, which is going to lead into kind of like a general area. I'm calling it kind of like a waiting room area. This is just going to be a small section that leads into the bigger dungeon. But when you first enter, there's not really going to be anything worth getting or noting. But as you go up the steps, you're going to be surprised by a giant scorpion. If I were you, I'd kind of keep it at this angle because it makes it harder for the enemy to hit you. But overall, it's not really a tough enemy, so a couple of hits and you should be fine. As you go into this area, I recommend staying by the door because it's going to lead the enemies kind of in like a little funnel. You can take them out one by one if you do it this way as well, which again is something I recommend doing. You don't necessarily want to go in there right away because there is a risk that you might get swarmed or surrounded. So you can play it safe. But also if you have like an AoE attack or something like that, that's probably going to be what takes them out. Now once you clear the first floor of the smaller enemies, I just recommend going up the steps and taking out the giant scorpion that's up there. You don't have to. I mean, you can explore the bottom area before you move up, but I think this way kind of like minimizes the risk of being ambushed because as you go back and explore, you'll find a couple of little straggler baby scorpions that might get up on you. But before you leave the area, there are some small items, but the main one that you want to get is the Revered Spirit Ash. This is definitely something you want to pick up, but other than that, there's really only some small items here and there. Nothing really worth noting. Alright, so now that we've picked up all the items worth getting here and we've taken out all the enemies, we're going to go ahead and progress into this next doorway. This is going to be the last little section before you get into the Belurat Tower settlement. So as you're making your way up the steps, you want to be mindful of the enemy to the right. He caught me. I should have seen it coming. But I'm going to go ahead and take the time to say that this is going to be a running theme in Belurat Tower. You're going to find a lot of surprise attacks around corners. So just keep your guard up or watch this walkthrough, whichever one. But just keep in mind that this is going to be one of many instances where this happens. But after you take out the enemy, you're going to walk into this main kind of open area. And you've reached it. You've reached Belurat Tower settlement. So we'll just walk up here and there's going to be a site of grace. This is the first one that you'll encounter. And then from here, you have 3 different pathways that you can go to. So rest up first if you need to. Go ahead and use your fragments or whatever ashes that you may have. But here are the 3 different pathways. This will be a shortcut that you'll unlock later on. This is going to be the main path going forward that we're going to take pretty soon. And then this one right here is good to enter into, but it's also a locked off shortcut. But you want to enter into this room because of the item that's right there in this corner. This item is going to help us reduce poison buildup, which is kind of in this legacy dungeon. Not too much, but it does exist, so make sure you pick up that item if you don't have something that neutralizes poison. But we're going to go ahead and just progress into this main area. Very narrow pathway, but there's only one hostile in this area. It's going to be that medium-sized opponent that you see right here to the right. The other ones are going to be non-hostile unless you get closer to them. But I recommend just singling this guy out, kind of luring him back to where you were. And then you can kind of make your way into the area and clean up the rest of the enemies that are sitting around here. Now this pool or waterfall that you see here has an item that is obviously meant to lure you out into the water. First and foremost, don't worry about the water. It's not going to give you any type of status buildup, but there is going to be an enemy hiding behind the waterfall. So just make sure you keep your guard up and don't run straight towards the item. But again, don't worry about touching the water. That's not going to do anything to you. So we're going to go ahead. We've kind of cleared this little area, so we're going to go on into the next one. You may or may not see these 2 enemies that are walking out in the open. They're bait. These guys are only here to lure you out into the open so that way you can get set up by these ranged opponents. Just take out the smaller guy first, because if you have a high dealing damage weapon or high damage dealing weapon, chances are you'll be able to knock him out in 1 or 2 hits. And then you're going to take this big guy and you're going to kind of lure him back into the area where you know it's safe. Once you take him out, there is 2 branching pathways. To the right is going to lead you into a well. We'll explore the well in just a second, but you're not going to be able to get too far into that area just yet. You're going to need the well depths key for that, which we'll also find as we progress through the area. But here's the well. As of right now, it only has 2 enemies that are near an item, and then 1 more enemy that's near the locked door. The item that's down here is Mesmer Fire Grease. You can kind of make the judgment whether you think it's worth picking up now or later. I didn't use any of the fire grease in this particular legacy dungeon. Maybe I should have, but that's not really the route that I took. But as you can see here, the door is locked, so we'll just go back up the ladder and we'll start progressing through the main path. So really, you're going to take the same path that you were taking, but you're just going to keep running. So don't bother fighting any of the enemies here. It's not really worth it. Just go through the doorway, go up the steps, and you're going to find the small private altar site of grace. Just activate it, and if you want to backtrack later and pick up the items that are around, feel free. But the reason I recommend just running through is because this location just has a lot of enemies and the chance of dying is pretty high. And it sucks because the site of grace is right there, so if it were to happen, it just wouldn't be ideal. Just run through all that shit. You don't got to worry about it. Touch the grace, and then just come back and pick up the items later. Don't even stress out about that. Now here, we have 2 options. We can either go left or we can go right. Right takes us further down into the legacy dungeon, and going left will take us to where the ranged enemies are. Once you defeat them, go down a little bit further, and on the left should be a locked door. But here is where you can explore the roofs of all of the tower settlements. Again, there's some couple of miscellaneous items here. Nothing really worth noting as far as any pickups go, but I'll let you explore this area how you want. Now, when you saw me jump down that broken part of the railing, that's how you get to this left section of the roofs. But I'm going to also show you the railing that you should jump off if you want to explore the right side. Again, this is something I'll let you explore at your own leisure. I'm not going to show it on video, but that's how you get to both sides of the rooftops to pick up your items. And if you see my character wearing different things, it's just because I'm running through the area at different moments. As I played through this section, I started learning different pathways that I could take. So really, you're just seeing the culmination of all that I've learned about this area, all mixed into one video. So I'm really trying to give you guys kind of like the best foot going forward when it comes to exploring this area, because I feel like I missed some things, but you know, I'm just trying to make sure you don't. So yeah, we're going to keep going forward. We're going to progress. We're going to go out the right side of this door now, and up the steps you're going to encounter the first horned warrior. It's a pretty tough fight. He's kind of fast. He deals a decent amount of damage, and he has combos for days. I recommend just staying right here where the steps are, because just like the giant scorpion that we fought earlier, the incline kind of fucks him up. So just stay right here. And I guess at the end of the day, if you do lose, the site of grace is like right there, so it's not that big of a deal. But when you beat him, because it's not if, when you beat him, he is going to drop the horned warrior armor, gauntlet, and greaves. So it's a pretty cool set. We're going to find some other items of the horned warrior later on as we progress. But from here, we have 2 options. We can either go right or go left. Left is the way you're supposed to go, and right is an optional area. So of course we're going to go right. I recommend taking out the enemies and not going the path that I'm going right now. And the reason I say that is because you'll see that the spellcaster that I didn't kill is still attacking me, and they keep attacking me when I go down into this main courtyard. Now, what makes that really dangerous is that there is an invasion. You're going to be invaded by Fire Knight Queelign. So this person if you can't tell by their name, does pyromancy, but they also have speed, they have a lot of health, and they deal some pretty good damage. So you kind of want to make sure you're giving yourself the best shot when you go into this fight. So yeah, take out all the enemies, kind of create a little small area, especially when you get into the courtyard. You know, take out some of the surrounding area enemies there, because that's going to be where you want to keep the fight. Defeating him will give you the Crusade insignia, and this courtyard really has no other pathways. It has enemies laying around, it has some items to pick up, but you do want to make sure before you leave to run to the other side of the tree that's in the center, and you'll pick up and find the Shriek of Sorrow, Ash of War. It's a pretty cool move. The lower your HP when you activate this effect, the greater your attack power will get when you activate it. It'll also cause nearby enemies to flinch. So it's pretty cool. Ash of War, you definitely don't want to leave that behind. But now that we've cleared out this area, we're going to go ahead and progress through the intended path. And the reason why I also recommend doing this before you go forward is because it's going to give you an opportunity to take an optional route, which is what I highly recommend. I recommend just going up this debris, climbing on top of these rooftops, because it's going to show you an ambush that would be waiting for you. Go ahead and knock them out around the corner, and I suggest doing what I'm doing right here, which is just rushing and defeating the enemies that you see when you first go down this alleyway, because there's going to be an ambush when you attack these two enemies. And then just when you think that the ambushes have stopped, of course, if you're going to attack this guy that's sitting by the waterfall, there's going to be somebody else that's going to try to push you off. That is a major threat there, so just make sure you're not standing too close to the ledge. It's kind of fucked up because there's some string right there, so that's really like the worst way to just die, to just go and pick up some string and then you get pushed off the edge. You don't want to do that. If you run back up to the grate, you'll kind of get a little teaser of some future enemies that you're going to fight, also in a, location that you're going to get to later. But there's not really much else for this area. We're going to progress forward. You'll see two more enemies, pretty easy to take out. And then once we climb this ladder, we're going to come across the first key of this location, which is the storeroom key. Now this is going to unlock the door that's over there by the ranged opponents that we saw earlier. I don't recommend going there right away because there's some other things that we need to pick up first. When you look across, you'll see an item that you can pick up. We'll get that later as well. What I recommend doing first is just going up these steps, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to go and take a left. Now, as soon as you go down these steps, look left again, and you'll see an elevator. That's going to take you back to the first bonfire. It's going to unlock that main door that we saw. Before you do anything else, go ahead and unlock that shortcut because we're going to use it a couple of times coming up. You can also use this time to rest up if you need to and get some healing charges. But now that we unlocked that, let's go ahead and ride the elevator back up because we're going to go pick up the well depths key. Let's go ahead and run back to the doorway right outside of the storeroom key. So from this location, we're going to go left. And let's go ahead and take out this medium-sized enemy first. And then after that, we're going to run all the way as far down as we can. This is just a minor item, some throwing daggers. But once we turn around and make our way back up the steps, keep your eye to the right for a red roof. You're going to be able to jump onto this roof. And then from there, there's going to be a bridge. Now, this is a kind of tricky jump, but just angle yourself right and try to jump onto the railing. And once you've done that, you'll be able to pick up this white flesh mushroom. Run straight into the room like how you see me do here, so that way you can avoid an ambush. And then this is going to be the location where we pick up the well depths key. This is going to unlock the door that's in the well. And now we have 2 keys and some backtracking to do. So go ahead and just jump out of the broken opening and make your way back down. This is where you fought the first horned knight, so you're near the small private altar site of grace. just run down the steps, and if you need to rest up, go for it. But if not, we're going to go ahead and unlock the door to meet this NPC. When I first walked in, I didn't talk to this NPC until after I defeated the dancing lion, so I may have missed some dialogue with this person. I don't know, but I'm showing you guys my encounter with them. If yours is different, please leave a comment, because I honestly don't know if they had anything to say, because again, I didn't meet them until after I defeated the boss. Part of me wanted to unalive them, but I'm not going to do that. So now that we've talked to this NPC, we're going to go ahead and walk out. We're going to make our way down to the well depths. So it's a pretty convenient doorway to exit out of, because after that it's just a straight shot going forward. If you rested and the enemies respawned, you are going to have to fight them. But if not, you can just make your way straight to the well depths. Obviously, don't jump down like you saw me do just there. Get on the ladder and slide down like you have some sense. And make sure to take out those 3 enemies that are down there. Now that the area is clear, we're going to go ahead and open the door. And then this is going to lead us into a pretty decently sized optional area. And here you have different pathways that you can go down. I suggest going straight, and as you can see right here, touching the water will start building up poison. So either stick to the rooftops or make sure you keep some of your poison items handy, especially because we're about to go and fight an ulcerated tree spirit. So as we make our way towards it, let's make sure that we stick to the rooftops and pick up any miscellaneous items that we see on the way. But at a certain point, it's going to be unavoidable. We're going to have to get into that poison water. So I suggest going ahead and equipping any of your poison neutralizing items now. And then the fight is really going to be just like any other tree spirit fight. I used my summon just because it's easier to first try this boss. It's not really an area that I want to run back through. So there really isn't much about how to take on this boss. If you fought one tree spirit before, which chances are if you're playing this DLC you fought your fair share of tree spirits, it's just like any other fight. The poison buildup is kind of annoying, but really it should be a somewhat easy fight to get through. Defeating the tree spirit will give you this talisman, and if you explore a little bit further, you have some other miscellaneous items that you can pick up. But once you've cleared out this section, we're going to go ahead and reset ourselves back into the beginning part of this location, because we're going to take a different pathway from here. So starting from these steps, I recommend going off and to the right to kind of step into this debris. Be sure to take your time and lure these enemies into the safe spot. You don't really want to go out there and fight them unless you have a shitload of poison neutralizing items, and go for it. But for the most part, just lure them to you. Some areas like this is going to be unavoidable, where you kind of have to run into the poison pit, but just keep in mind that you don't want to get too close to these mosquito enemies, because they do grab, so just watch out for that. This next area is going to have several different patrolling groups of enemies. It'll be really dangerous to trigger all of them at once, so we're going to run across the lake or pit or whatever you want to call it, and then try to avoid them, but we're going to take them on in small little chunks. So after we get to that safe spot, we're going to run to the closest debris pile and take out these 3 enemies. Now, what I like about taking this path is that once you get to the roof and you take out the enemy that's up there, it kind of gives you a vantage view of the whole surrounding area. So it kind of lets you plan out how you want to approach this. And it also gives you a good idea of how many patrolling groups there are. So again, in this instance, if I were to trigger both of those groups, it would just be bad news. So I'm just letting them do their thing, kind of walk away past me, and then I'm going to go ahead and make my way north. Now, once you do that, be careful, because you're going to come across another horned knight. And if you just got off of fighting the tree spirit, I would imagine that your heals are probably not full. So just keep that in mind. You do have a risk of proccing the enemies, so try to keep the fight close to the wall and away from the pit as much as possible. Obviously at some points it's going to be unavoidable, but as long as you keep in mind where those patrolling groups may be, you should be able to take out the Horned Knight before they circle back around. I got lucky here and I got the Horned Warrior sword. I don't know if it's a guaranteed drop for everybody, and I'm only saying that because when I fought another Horned Warrior, I had gotten another sword. So at first I thought maybe this was kind of a guaranteed drop for taking out this enemy. I'm not too sure now. So you may or may not get that item, but here I did. And now that you've cleared out this area of the Horned Warrior, you can use it as your platform to fight the groups. And I just recommend aggroing them one at a time. But yeah, in this location you'll also find the Poisoned Hand, which is a pretty cool melee item. I used it, I upgraded it and used it. I thought it was really cool. So if you're interested in that, here is the map location for it. It has a unique skill called Poison Spear Hand Strike. And again, it's a melee weapon. It's really cool. So if you're into that kind of thing, then it's definitely an item worth picking up. Now let's make our way east to this second debris pile where we'll encounter another group of enemies. A weapon art like Eruption was really helpful for me because it allowed me to obviously create an AoE area, which if you're fighting grouped enemies, they tend to be in a small area. So definitely got my use out of it here. And if you see yourself being attacked by the poison projectiles, just use any type of building or structure to kind of shield you as you're fighting through it. But again, keeping these poison neutralizing items handy is definitely the move here. So once you take out this group, you can go ahead and make your way south, and this is going to be the exit out of this area. Now you can go ahead and climb up the ladder now if you want to, but if you want an optional item, you can go ahead and run to the other side of this building and just look across. You'll find a white flesh mushroom to pick up. So now we've cleared this bottom location, we can go ahead and make our way up the ladder, and we'll find ourselves unlocking the second shortcut back to the main bonfire. So absolutely take the time to rest up here. And now that we've unlocked the shortcut that's near the main door, we're going to go ahead and ride the elevator back up and continue through the dungeon. Sort of. We're going to take a detour by going through this scorpion infested area. Before you get to the main door, you're going to be met with a swarm of baby scorpions, but as soon as you enter in, you'll find 2 giant scorpions. Same deal as we did earlier. We're going to go ahead and stick near the doorway where we first entered, and we're just going to bait out this one scorpion. The black one is definitely the tougher out of the 2. You would think that the red one would be, but it was actually pretty easy to take out. It took me maybe about 2 hits. Granted, I was using a weapon art, so maybe that influenced it, but we're going to go ahead and clear out this area here before we make our way out of the section. There's a broken stairway that we really can't do anything with, and as we exit, let's take a left and jump on this debris. You'll find a doorway that is somewhat hidden. Be careful because there is an enemy waiting to grab you. Again, as I mentioned, it's kind of a running theme for this dungeon. So we'll go ahead and take them out. And when I first entered in here, I mean, yeah, there was enemies to fight, but man, it was just a crazy room that I couldn't just help but just look at. It just was kind of freaky. I didn't really know what to make of it. This was one of the few instances where I just started to take my time and just really admire the design of this dungeon. And I'm glad I took that time because normally I felt like I would have rushed this enemy here. Thankfully I didn't do that because it let me just kind of walk up and get a view of this person that's just absolutely going through it. And they're kind of just crying in front of this larger insect corpse, which is just kind of creepy as hell. I thought maybe if you took this enemy out, it would drop a special item or something. Unfortunately, it didn't, so then I just felt kind of bad. But once you make your way out of that area, you're going to come across another Michaelis Cross. Go ahead and activate that. Make sure you pick up your scatter tree fragment. Take the time to read the words that Mikola carved, and then we're gonna exit out of this area. Here's also the map location if you're interested in that. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and walk out of this door. And here you'll want to be careful because there are some enemies down below that could shoot projectiles at you. So just make sure you're away from the ledge to avoid being hit by that. But then we're going to pick up the dried bouquet talisman. This talisman raises attack power when a spirit you've summoned dies. So if you're into doing all of that, then this can be a pretty cool talisman for you. But the only other path that we have from here is to just jump down into the pit below. So just make sure you pick a good area. This was kind of the area that I chose. I was trying to see if I can kind of get a plunging attack on one of these guys to kind of thin out the herd before I go down there. So I was able to take out this one guy. And once you jump down, you have two options. You can either head east or west. Going west is going to lead you down an optional area that dead ends not too far from where you're currently at. If you want some miscellaneous items, you can go ahead and go west to pick those up. East is the way out, so I'll show you what it's like going down here. It's really just a whole bunch of enemies with some items at the end of it. But it is kind of cool because you do finally get to meet up with the two enemies that you saw through that grate when you were in the earlier sections of this dungeon. So yeah, just make sure you take out all of the enemies, pick up all of the items, and then just go ahead and run back east so that way we can get out of here. Now, if you haven't guessed it already, this item that you see here is kind of like a trap because there's an enemy that's right around the corner ready to grab you. And I really did basically get grabbed or surprised by every single attack that this dungeon has to offer. But the good news is that even if you do get caught by this stuff, it's not going to kill you unless you have like super low health. So it's okay if it grabs you. Hopefully it doesn't. If you're watching this video, hopefully you're kind of watching this a little ahead and then you're playing through, following behind, because there's just setup after setup. Once you climb this ladder and you take out this enemy that's by the ledge, there's another one that's waiting for you. But in this case, it kind of worked out in my favor because it let me push them both off the ledge the way that the iframes worked when I was doing the first backstab. So it's pretty cool. They didn't climb up the ladder for me. That doesn't mean that they won't do that for you. So just be careful. They might come back up the ladder. But for me, I was able to just go ahead and go out of the door. And now we're placed behind a horned warrior. So we're going to rewind a little bit and we're going to go back to where we found the storeroom key. This area really has a lot of branching paths. So when we took those first initial paths, it kind of took us off course a little bit. So now here we are going back on course. You didn't really miss a whole lot. There's a lot of bird enemies on this roof. Be careful, they can push you off. And really just pick them off one by one. There's a spellcaster also that's in that second part of the roof, so just make sure you single him out as well when you get the chance. And then really, once you defeat all of the birds and you land back onto the bridge, you're on the other side of the bridge where we first were. There's an enemy here that's purely meant for bait, but this is the intended path to fight the horned warrior, I believe the third one that we've come across in this dungeon. But since we're behind the horned warrior, honestly, it's pretty risky to try to fight him because we're actually really close to the final bonfire. And this is another instance where I'm going to show you something that you should just go ahead and do. And if you want to backtrack later, then you absolutely can. But I recommend just running straight towards the bonfire. So this is how we're going to do it. We're just literally going to run past all of these guys. There is a revered spirit ash to the left where everybody is just chilling out. Forget about that. We're going to get to it later. Let's run up the steps and we're going to be in the same building where we found those two giant spiders or scorpions. Run up these steps and just make sure you conserve some stamina because there's this enemy, I don't know his name, really dangerous. The last enemy that you'll have to fight before you get to the site of grace, but you don't have to fight him. Just run past his ass, activate it, and then backtrack later if you want. A lot of the items that you're running past are miscellaneous and they're not really vital aside from the Revered Spirit Ash. Definitely go back down there and get that. But for the most part, you've completed the area. Once you choose to open the door that's by this site of grace, it will trigger the Dancing Lion boss fight. I have a tutorial on that already, so I'll leave a link, and if you're interested in checking that out, that'd be really cool. But other than that, we did it. We cleared Belurat Tower. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. I'm sure it was a pretty long one for you guys. It was definitely a long one for me. I'm definitely gonna try to do these walkthroughs a little bit more. I'm still new at it, so I'll get better. But leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you're watching me on TikTok, make sure to leave a follow. And if you're on YouTube, if you can go over to my TikTok and follow me there, that'd be awesome. But I'll catch you guys on the next one. And until then, take care.
O horn-decked beast from higher sphere delivered, take root inside the tower's sculpted keepers, and perched within, we beg of thee, rise. Dance and cavorte, cleanse all and go it. Cruelty, woe, and those who plague the tower. Cleanse away the strumpet's vile agony.